I've noticed a real problem in the world of cars at the moment, and that problem is the need for seemingly everyone to absolutely glaze Chinese cars right now, and this is something that's been really annoying me, because the other day, I was walking past a car dealer and the prices I saw in the windscreen of these Chinese cars weren't the crazily low competitive prices I've been hearing about. The things were going for 40, 50, even 80 grand for some of these Chinese cars, which gets me onto the topic of people absolutely losing their mind about these Chinese cars without thinking about the bigger picture. Whether it be MG's recent 0-star ANCAP safety rating, BYD's rear suspension seeming to come from a shopping trolley. Now, some would say that Chinese car makers have recently made quite a great leap forward, but I'm not convinced. Now, my problem isn't that they're foreign. I have no qualms with Asian cars on our roads, whether they be Kias, Hyundais, Toyotas, you name it. This isn't about anti-Asian sentiment or anything like that. Cars don't have to be European, they can come from anywhere. My problem is with companies like Geely, not people like Xi Li. You see, here's the problem with Chinese cars. The manufacturers have learnt how to really maximise the headline figures. Horsepower, battery capacity, and tech crap. Yes, we've got a screen that makes fart buttons and there, or something. You can make a fart sound with a screen in the car. That's what they all want to advertise. It's got screens and horsepower and stuff. But they have really maximised the hard factors, it seems, but to make a good car, what you really need is all the soft factors, and those are the tricky things to do, and you've sometimes got to compromise on your hard factors to get those soft factors. So what do I mean about this? Well, let's look at the BYD Seal. It seems like a really good deal. You can get it with 500 horsepower for just $60,000. Is that not a bargain? Well, you might want to look at what's going on underneath the thing. The tyres. It comes on tyres which are 225mm wide. 225mm is a tyre width I know quite well, because that's exactly the same as the tyre width of a Mark V Golf GTI, which has 200 horsepower and weighs just over 1,300 kilos. But BYD has decided to put this same tyre width on a car that weighs 2,100 kilos and has 500 horsepower. Generally, you want a wide tyre on a heavy car so it can carry the loads because of a thing called tyre load sensitivity. The more you load up a tyre, the lower its coefficient of friction is because it's being compressed and stretched around a bit. So the normal friction equation doesn't apply, so you do need more surface area on the ground when it's heavier when you're talking about tyres specifically, because they don't behave like other surfaces. So you can't just use normal friction and think, oh, tyre width. No, it does. It's important. And why heavy cars can't corner as well as lightweight cars. So you have to have a wide tyre on a heavy car. It's because the tyre load sensitivity means that you have less friction per kilogram. 225mm wide tyres on a 2.1 tonne car with 500 horsepower sounds like an absolutely terrifying combination. Now, whilst the 225s are perfectly adequate for a Mark V Golf from 2006, they're woefully insufficient for something as heavy as a BYD Seal and for something as powerful as a BYD Seal. I mean, the thing's got 500 horsepower. And that's just one thing I found easily without looking too deep into this car for any more nitpicky flaws. It's a fairly basic thing, just the tyre width is wrong. You'd think they would have thought of that. But then there's the BYD Dolphin, which is cheaper than the Seal, and you might think that one's a good deal. But have a look at this rear suspension. That is a joke. This is a common theme on Chinese cars in general. The headline figures look good, and then you look a little deeper and you see that they've cut some corners. And by the way, the Renault 5, which is cheaper than a BYD Dolphin, has proper independent rear suspension, okay? Chinese cars are designed for a speed of 120 kilometers per hour, generally speaking. It's sort of the industry standard in China is you rate your components for 120k an hour in the Chinese car industry. Now, German cars, to contrast, are generally designed with an industry standard that components should be rated for 250 or 300k an hour. And this means that at 130 kilometers per hour, which is the speed limit in many European countries, you might actually be driving at speeds which are in excess of what the car's components are rated for. And even if you have a country with a max limit below 120, you're still driving very close to that limit of what the parts are rated for. Whereas if you're driving a car which has been designed with all the components designed, loads ratings for 250 kilometers per hour, if you're going 110, you're nowhere near what the components of that car are going to fail at. So you're much better off with a car that's designed for much higher speeds than you can actually go, because you basically have that big safety margin, that big buffer. But it's not just their normal mass market cars. There's the BYD Yangwang U9. Not only do you have to tell everyone you drive a car called a Yangwang, I mean, you could just imagine that conversation. So, what are you driving today? Well, it's like it's a Chinese sort of like supercar thing. Oh, what's it called? I can't remember. It's impressive. 3,000 horsepower output. Still results in a car that's slower than a 500 horsepower Porsche 911 around the Nürburgring. So whether you're in the market for a simple car to buy groceries or a high-performance track weapon, these Chinese cars are consistently cutting corners. They look great on the surface, but just like that thing you bought from Temu, you realise what's wrong with it at the very worst moment. But beyond the engineering criticisms, there's an even bigger problem lying beneath the surface. You see, Chinese working conditions are absolutely abhorrent. Think about the workers who made that car. Now, the factory where your iPhone was made has these nets around it. Yes, those nets are for exactly the reason that you think they're there. Now, when you're buying a cheap plastic trinket from China, you're only giving $1 to a factory like this. If you buy an iPhone, that might be a few $100s to a company like this. If you buy a brand new Chinese car, there's a very solid chance that you'll be giving as much as $60,000 to a company that treats its workers like this. In China, trade unions are not legal. The workers are required to work from 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. 6 days per week. That's called the 996 work week. That's 12 hours every day. They only get 1 day a week with any proper relaxation time. Then it's eat, work, sleep, repeat. That's the reality, and a big factor in why that price tag can often look so attractive, because they aren't putting the human suffering cost that went into making that car on the price tag. Of course not. Then there's the fact that these cars are usually sold for a loss. Sometimes the manufacturer will lose more than $20,000 per car on certain models. They're subsidised heavily by the government of China, and they do this so that they can try to push their competitors out of business until only Chinese manufacturers are left standing, and then they can push the prices up as much as they want, whilst leaving factory workers all across the world out of a job. Do you really want to help them achieve this goal? Now, I'm not going to say that Western car manufacturers are the bastion of morality. All car manufacturers are a pack of assholes, whether it be Volkswagen or even Toyota. Every single car manufacturer in the world is evil, even Volvo. But there's different levels of evil. With BYD, MG, or any of these other new Chinese manufacturers, you get all the data harvesting, poor customer service, unreliable and dodgy salesmen that every other car manufacturer on the face of the planet will give you. But additionally, on top of all that rubbish that you get from all car manufacturers, you get a car that was built by 996 workers who have no joy in their lives, who are often killed or injured whilst at work due to the appallingly bad health and safety standards in China, where there's heaps and heaps of industrial accidents, workers who are underpaid, and I know exactly what these Chinaboos will say as their counter-argument. Oh, but what about America? Now, I'm no fan of America either. It's always fans of these random third world dictatorships that seem to think that the world contains two countries, America and whatever third world dictatorship they're a fan of. But the thing is, there's actually more than two countries though. I'm Australian, most of my viewers are from various countries in Europe. Barely anyone from America will even see this video. Anyway, even if there were only 2 countries, as bad as American workers' rights are, and they are really bad, like really bad, I'm not going to deny that. Chinese workers' rights, though, are 10 times worse than in America. I mean, you'd definitely be better off in an American factory than a Chinese one. Every single day I wake up and be entirely glad that I am not an American. But make no mistake, if I had to choose between living in China and living in America, I would pick the USA 100% every single day without fail. China is a country that has concentration camps for ethnic minorities. Satellite photos show this. We know what's going on there. We know what re-education means. You really want to support that? This kind of trend of glazing Chinese stuff has gone too far. We live in the real world where real decisions have real consequences. And if you're a Uyghur in Far Eastern China, that decision might be getting you sent to a so-called re-education camp. Or if you're a poor rural Chinese person who cannot be employed in the wealthier Chinese urban areas because of the hukou system, which makes you a second-class citizen, yes, they have internal passports in the country that can block you from moving to a different region. When you're driving a BYD, you're driving with Xi Jinping, whether you like it or not. You see the same stuff with their high-speed rail. Everyone going, oh, how amazing, they've got some trains like what Japan and Western Europe have had since the 70s. They really are living in the future. But let's actually do a comparison. So I first found 2 city pairs that were around 600k apart, then compared. Over the 600 kilometres from Guangzhou to Xiamen, tickets cost approximately 60 Australian dollars, whilst the same distance from Barcelona to Madrid cost also around $60. But guess what? The Spanish trains do the journey in as little as 2.5 hours and no more than 3 hours 20. But in China, you won't find any train doing this journey in less than 3 hours 20, with most taking more than 4 hours. Oh yeah, and guess what? Despite Spain being one of Western Europe's poorest countries, Spaniards still make around 3 times more money than Chinese workers. So that $60 is a much smaller percentage of their wage than the $60 is for a Chinese worker. So why is all this hype online about Chinese high-speed rail? Why isn't there hype for the much better Spanish high-speed rail that managed to profitably sell tickets for the same price as China's high-speed rail for a train that goes faster whilst having to pay their workers 3 times more and has to employ more different workers since it can't do 996 work weeks? Why is there all this hype for Chinese cars with big headline figures but major engineering flaws? Well, it's because there's one thing in China that genuinely has made a great leap forward, and that's their ability to do propaganda. And we're seeing that right now.